This is the Business Blackbook, where billion-dollar empires are built and destroyed. Tonight's entry begins with a promise that sounded like the future of medicine. Imagine a world where a single drop of blood could reveal everything about your health. Hundreds of medical tests, cholesterol, diabetes, infections, even early signs of cancer, all from a tiny finger prick. No needles, no tubes of blood, no waiting days for lab results. Just one drop, and within minutes, you would know what was happening inside your body. It sounded revolutionary, almost magical, and the person promising this future was a 19-year-old Stanford dropout named Elizabeth Holmes. She spoke softly, dressed in black turtlenecks, and claimed she was building a technology that would transform healthcare forever. Her company was called Theranos. Investors believed her. The media celebrated her. Silicon Valley called her the next Steve Jobs. Within a few years, Theranos was valued at $9 billion. Elizabeth Holmes became the youngest self-made female billionaire in the world. But behind the stage, behind the presentations, behind the billion-dollar valuation, there was a secret. The technology never worked, and yet, for more than a decade, some of the smartest investors on Earth believed the lie. Elizabeth Holmes grew up in Washington, D.C., in a family that valued ambition and influence. Her father worked in government agencies, and her childhood was filled with stories about powerful people shaping the world. From a young age, Holmes wanted to build something important, something that would leave a mark on history. She eventually enrolled at Stanford University to study chemical engineering. During her time there, she became fascinated by the medical testing industry, especially how slow and expensive blood diagnostics could be. Most medical tests required large tubes of blood and complex laboratory equipment. Results often took days to arrive. Holmes believed there had to be a better way. At 19 years old, she dropped out of Stanford and started a company. In Silicon Valley, this kind of story sounded familiar. After all, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates had also left college to build world-changing companies. Holmes told investors she was developing a revolutionary machine that could run hundreds of medical tests using just a few drops of blood. The machine was called Edison. If it worked, it could transform global healthcare. But there was one critical problem. The technology was still mostly an idea. However, in Silicon Valley, a powerful vision can sometimes attract millions, even before the product exists. And Elizabeth Holmes knew exactly how to sell that vision. Holmes carefully crafted her public image. She wore black turtlenecks almost every day, echoing the style of Steve Jobs. She spoke slowly, confidently, and described a future where medical testing would become fast, affordable, and accessible to everyone. But the most powerful move she made was building credibility. Instead of filling Theranos' board with scientists or medical experts, Holmes recruited some of the most powerful political figures in America. Former Secretary of State George Shultz, former Defense Secretary James Mattis, former senators and government officials. None of them had deep experience in medical diagnostics, but their reputations gave the company an aura of authority. Investors looked at the board and assumed the company must be legitimate. Money began flowing in. Over the years, Theranos raised more than $700 million from wealthy investors and venture funds. Soon, the company partnered with Walgreens pharmacies to roll out blood testing services across the United States. Customers could walk into a pharmacy, prick their finger, and expect revolutionary results. But inside the company, engineers and scientists were facing a different reality. The machines often failed. Results were inconsistent, and many tests simply could not be performed using such tiny blood samples. Sometimes, the devices didn't work at all. In those moments, Theranos secretly used traditional laboratory machines made by other companies. The miracle machine was mostly an illusion, but inside the company, questioning the technology was dangerous. Employees who raised concerns were often silenced, pressured, or fired, and the illusion continued growing. A GIAC a 20 a BSDD intas-B. So oral Theranos GLA B2 intas A1 pre. Shorabra Chiza zo veredo v zero varido. She appeared on the covers of Forbes, Fortune, and major business magazines. The media celebrated her as a visionary founder who was reinventing healthcare. Theranos claimed its technology could run more than 200 blood tests from a single finger prick. Investors were convinced. The company's valuation climbed to $9 billion. Elizabeth Holmes' personal fortune was estimated at $4.5 billion. Yet, behind the scenes, very few independent experts had actually seen the machines working properly. Theranos refused to publish scientific data. They avoided peer-reviewed medical journals, and they rarely allowed outside scientists to examine their technology. In the world of medicine, transparency is essential, but the narrative surrounding Theranos was so powerful, so inspiring, that many people ignored the warning signs. Until one journalist started asking questions. In 2015, a reporter from the Wall Street Journal named John Carreyrou began hearing rumors about Theranos. Former employees had quietly raised concerns about the technology. At first, these warnings seemed difficult to verify, but as Carreyrou investigated further, the evidence became troubling. Employees described machines that constantly malfunctioned. They revealed how the company often relied on traditional lab analyzers instead of Theranos devices. Some patients had received incorrect test results that could have serious medical consequences. Carreyrou spent months gathering documents and interviewing former workers. When Theranos learned about the investigation, the company fought back aggressively. Lawyers issued threats. Executives pressured whistleblowers. Elizabeth Holmes publicly denied the allegations, but the evidence continued to grow. In October 2015, the Wall Street Journal published a major investigation exposing the truth about Theranos. The article shook Silicon Valley. For the first time, the public began questioning whether the billion-dollar healthcare startup was built on a lie. After the investigation, the empire began to crumble. Government regulators inspected Theranos laboratories and discovered serious violations. Many tests were unreliable. Some results were dangerously inaccurate. The company was forced to void thousands of patient test results. Walgreens ended its partnership with Theranos. Investors lost confidence. The $9 billion valuation quickly collapsed. Elizabeth Holmes was banned from running medical laboratories. More employees left the company. Lawsuits began piling up from investors and patients. By 2018, Theranos officially shut down. A company that once promised to revolutionize medicine had become one of the largest scandals in Silicon Valley history, but the final chapter was still ahead. In 2018, Elizabeth Holmes was charged with multiple counts of fraud. Prosecutors argued that she had knowingly misled investors and patients about the capabilities of Theranos technology. The trial captured global attention. Some believed Holmes had deliberately built a fraudulent empire. Others argued she was an overly ambitious founder who believed the technology would eventually succeed. After months of testimony and evidence, the jury reached its verdict. In 2022, Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty on several counts of fraud. She was later sentenced to more than 11 years in federal prison. The rise and fall of Theranos became a powerful lesson in business history. It showed how charisma, storytelling, and ambition can sometimes overshadow reality. Investors ignored warning signs because they wanted to believe in a revolutionary vision. Powerful board members failed to question the science, and a startup built on promises continued growing, even when the technology never worked in business. Especially when human lives are involved, a compelling story is never enough. Eventually, reality always catches up. And that is how a 19-year-old founder built a $9 billion empire on a machine that never worked. A story of ambition, belief, deception, and one of the biggest startup collapses in history. And with that, the Black Book closes. Subscribe, and we will open the next page soon.